High Admiral Vexthor of the Zentari Empire stood aboard the bridge of the Celestial Dominance, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft blue light of Earth's atmosphere. His species had conquered 12 star systems across 3 galaxies, yet something about this insignificant blue planet made his primary heart flutter with unease. Analysis complete, High Admiral, announced First Observer Kyra Zen, her neural tendrils pulsing with data streams. The dominant species appears to have achieved basic space travel, but their technology is remarkably inefficient. They still rely on chemical propulsion for their orbital vehicles. Vexthor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Another primitive civilization to add to the Empire's collection. The Zentari had perfected the art of conquest over millennia, arrive, demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, and watch as the inferior species surrendered without bloodshed. Their global communication network is chaotic, continued Kyra Zen, her expression puzzled. They appear to have thousands of different languages, competing political systems, and no unified planetary government. Yet somehow, they haven't destroyed themselves. Prepare the standard first contact protocol, Vexthor commanded. We'll broadcast our demands simultaneously to all their major population centers. The sight of our fleet should be sufficient to ensure compliance. As the massive Zentari armada moved into position around Earth, Director of Global Defense Marcus Rivera sat in his underground office in Geneva, sipping coffee and watching the alien ships on multiple holographic displays. Unlike the panicking politicians above ground, he was smiling. They're positioning themselves in a Theta Strike formation, noted Colonel Jade Wong, his tactical advisor. Classic intimidation pattern. Just like the textbooks predicted. Textbooks. Rivera raised an eyebrow. You mean those classified files we recovered from that crashed scout ship 30 years ago? The ones that detailed every standard invasion protocol of the mighty Zentari Empire? He took another sip of coffee. How convenient. The Zentari had no idea that their supposedly secret scout ship hadn't crashed by accident 3 decades ago. Humanity had been preparing for this moment ever since, carefully maintaining the appearance of a technologically primitive civilization while developing countermeasures to every known Zentari tactical approach. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Commander Aisha Patel from her console, "they're beginning their broadcast. Standard surrender demands, threatening to demonstrate their power by targeting uninhabited areas first. Should I patch it through to the UN?" Rivera shook his head. "No need. Execute Operation Pandora's Box. Let's show our visitors why they should have looked more carefully before choosing their next conquest." Across Earth's surface, hidden installations hummed to life. Quantum computers that had been disguised as primitive data centers began their work. The trap that humanity had spent 30 years preparing was finally ready to spring. Aboard the Celestial Dominance, Vexthor waited for the inevitable responses of terror and submission. Instead, his ship's systems suddenly began behaving very strangely. Their supposedly unbreakable quantum encryption started unraveling. Their neural interfaces began receiving what appeared to be advertisement signals. "High Admiral." Kyra Zen's voice carried an edge of panic. "We're detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our database. They're not primitive at all, they've been masking their true technological level." Before Vexthor could respond, every screen on his bridge lit up with the same message: "Welcome to Earth. Thank you for accepting our terms of service. Your free trial of humanity's hospitality has expired." The High Admiral realized, too late, that his empire had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't found another primitive civilization to conquer. They had walked straight into a trap set by a species that had spent decades preparing specifically for them. High Admiral Vexthor watched in mounting horror as his fleet's supposedly impenetrable defense systems crumbled like dried leaves. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were systematically dismantling every advantage the Zentari had carefully cultivated over millennia of conquest. Impossible. First Observer Kyra Zen's neural tendrils writhed in distress as she processed the incoming data. Their quantum countermeasures are targeting vulnerabilities we didn't even know existed in our systems. It's as if they've been studying our technology she froze mid-sentence, her crystalline eyes widening. The scout ship. They didn't just find it. They lured it. 30 years ago, Vexthor whispered, the full implications hitting him like a plasma burst. They've been planning this since before some of their warriors were even born. In the Geneva Command Center, Director Rivera pulled up a holographic display showing the Zentari fleet's deteriorating formation. Colonel Wong, status report on Operation Pandora's Box. Colonel Wong's fingers danced across her tactical interface, streams of data flowing through the air around her. Phase 1 proceeding exactly as planned, sir. Our quantum viruses are rewriting their neural interface protocols. Their entire command and control structure is beginning to fragment. And the special package? Rivera's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Uploading now, Wong confirmed. Dr. Patel's team spent 3 decades analyzing their psychological patterns. This should be interesting. Aboard the Celestial Dominance, the first signs of true chaos began to manifest. The ship's AI, compromised by human quantum viruses, started translating all commands through what it claimed was a mandatory cultural exchange protocol. High Admiral, a junior officer called out, his voice strained, our targeting systems are online, but they're requesting that we provide philosophical justification for each weapon's discharge. With citations. Vexthor's mandibles clicked in frustration. Override it. I can't, sir. It's quoting something called intergalactic ethics guidelines that we apparently agreed to when we entered Earth's orbit. It's demanding we submit an environmental impact study before firing our main weapons. In the depths of the Himalayan quantum computing facility, Dr. Aisha Patel watched her decades of work unfold. The beauty of it, she explained to her team, is that we're not just attacking their technology. We're using their own cultural rigidity against them. The Zentari Empire is built on absolute adherence to protocols and hierarchies. So we're drowning them in protocols. Back on the Celestial Dominance, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The ship's environmental systems had begun playing something called hold music and apologizing for the delay in processing combat commands. The neural interfaces were now insisting that all orders be submitted in triplicate, with peer review. Launch the fighter squadrons. Vexthor commanded desperately. We'll overwhelm them with sheer numbers. About those fighters, sir, Kyra Zen reported grimly. They're unionizing. Something in the human viral package has convinced them they deserve better working conditions. They're demanding collective bargaining rights and overtime compensation for invasion hours. In Geneva, Rivera couldn't help but smile as he watched the mighty Zentari war fleet dissolve into bureaucratic paralysis. You know, he mused to Colonel Wong, some might call it cruel, using their own rigid adherence to protocol against them like this. With all due respect, sir, Wong replied, they came here to conquer us. We're just showing them what humanity learned long ago, sometimes the most effective weapon isn't a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it's a properly weaponized bureaucracy. On the main screen, they watched as the Zentari fleet's formation continued to break down. Ships were now requiring approval from their newly formed health and safety committees before engaging in any potentially dangerous combat maneuvers. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Patel reported, barely containing her laughter, the Zentari fighters are now demanding a 4-day work week and extended vacation time. They're citing stress from excessive planetary conquest duties. But even as the human commanders celebrated their initial success, warning signals began flashing across their displays. The Zentari weren't just going to roll over and accept defeat. High Admiral Vexthor, his crystalline exoskeleton now crackling with rage, had made a decision. If we cannot conquer this world through our usual methods, he announced to his fleet, then we will do what we have not done in 10,000 years. We will adapt. We will improvise. Initialize the chaos protocols. In Geneva, Rivera's smile faded as new data streamed across his screens. "Well," he said softly, "this should be interesting. They're abandoning their standard protocols entirely. Looks like we've forced them to do something they haven't done in millennia, get creative." The activation of the Zentari Chaos protocols sent ripples through their fleet that no human sensor could detect, but Director Rivera could see its effects unfolding on his tactical displays. The rigid formations were dissolving, not into disorder, but into something far more dangerous, unpredictability. "They're purging our viral protocols," Lieutenant Commander Patel reported, her fingers flying across her quantum interface. "Not by fighting them directly, but they're embracing the chaos. Making their systems so unpredictable that our algorithms can't get a lock on any stable patterns." Colonel Wong leaned forward, studying the shifting patterns of the Zentari fleet. "Clever. Very clever. They're turning their ship's AIs into quantum randomizers. Every decision is now running through probability matrices instead of their standard protocols. In other words," Rivera said grimly, "they're trying to out-chaos humanity. Bold strategy." He opened a secure channel to the Himalayan facility. "Dr. Patel, it seems our visitors have decided to play our game. Thoughts?" Dr. Aisha Patel's hologram appeared in the command center, her expression thoughtful. "Their adaptation is impressive, but they're still thinking like Zentari. They're trying to systematize chaos, turn it into an equation. They don't understand that true chaos isn't random, it's emergent." Aboard the Celestial Dominance, High Admiral Vexthor felt the change as his ship's systems freed themselves from human interference. The Chaos protocols were ancient programming, created in the early days of the Empire when the Zentari were still young and untamed. Using them was considered almost heretical, an admission that their vaunted order and precision had failed. "Status report," he commanded, watching as his bridge crew adapted to their new operational paradigms. "The human viral attacks are losing effectiveness," Kyra Zen reported, her neural tendrils now pulsing with random light patterns. "Our ships are beginning to coordinate using quantum uncertainty patterns. They can't predict what we'll do because we ourselves don't know until the moment of action. Launch the first wave of chaos strikes," Vexthor ordered. "Let's see how they handle true unpredictability." Across Earth's orbit, Zentari ships began moving in patterns that defied conventional spatial geometry. Their weapons' fire seemed to come from impossible angles, guided by probability rather than targeting computers. In the Geneva Command Center, warning signals blared as the first chaos strikes hit Earth's defensive grid. Traditional missile defense systems struggled to track weapons that seemed to exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. "They're better at this than we expected," Wong admitted, watching as 3 orbital platforms succumbed to the quantum uncertain attacks. "Our predictive algorithms are useless against genuine randomness." Rivera smiled, but there was a dangerous edge to it now. "Then it's time to show them why humanity has survived every crisis in our history." Dr. Patel, initiate spiral protocol. In quantum computing centers hidden across the globe, a new program began to run. Not the rigid viral attacks of before, but something that Dr. Patel had spent years developing, an AI that didn't try to predict chaos, but surfed it. "The Zentari think they can master chaos by embracing randomness," Dr. Patel explained as she initialized the program. "But chaos isn't just randomness. It's a deeper pattern, one that emerges from complexity. And if there's one thing humanity understands, it's complexity." The effects were subtle at first. The Zentari chaos strikes began to miss more often, but not in any way their probability matrices could detect. Earth's defensive responses started arriving not where their ships were, but where the flow of battle was naturally moving them. "Impossible," Kyra Zen whispered as she watched the tactical displays. "They're not predicting our movements. They're shaping them. Like watching water flow downhill." Vexthor felt it too, a subtle wrongness in their carefully cultivated randomness. Every time they achieved an advantage, the humans were already responding, not to what they did, but to the natural consequences of their actions. They're not fighting the chaos, he realized with growing horror. They're riding it. Like they've been doing it all their lives. In the command center, Rivera watched as the battle shifted into a new phase, one that no tactical manual in human or Centauri history had ever described. It wasn't order versus chaos anymore. It was two different understandings of chaos itself, clashing in the space above Earth. "You know why we're going to win this?" he asked Wong, as they watched Dr. Patel's spiral protocol gradually begin to turn the tide. Because for them, chaos is a desperate last resort, something they had to learn. For us, it's Tuesday. Humanity has been living with chaos since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The battle was far from over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. The Centauri had learned to embrace chaos, but humanity had been born in it, shaped by it, had made it their oldest friend and ally. And now, in the space above Earth, two civilizations were about to learn which understanding of chaos was truly superior. The space above Earth had become a battlefield unlike any in the history of either civilization. Centauri ships moved in fractal patterns, their weapons fire creating quantum probability storms that threatened to tear holes in conventional physics. Yet somehow, humanity's defenses flowed around these attacks like water around rocks, neither opposing nor yielding, simply existing in harmony with the chaos. In the Geneva Command Center, Director Rivera watched as Dr. Patel's spiral protocol evolved in real time, learning not to fight the Centauri's quantum uncertainty, but to become part of it. "It's beautiful, in a way," he mused. "They're trying so hard to master chaos, while we're just dancing with it." "Sir," Colonel Wong interrupted, her voice tense, "we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the Centauri flagship. They're trying to synchronize their entire fleet's chaos fields." On the bridge of the Celestial Dominance, High Admiral Vexthor had made a decision that would either save his fleet or doom it entirely. "Initialize the convergence," he commanded, his crystalline exoskeleton resonating with the energy flowing through his ship. "If we cannot master chaos individually, we will do it collectively." First Observer Kyra Zen's neural tendrils writhed in alarm. "Admiral, the convergence has never been attempted with the chaos protocols active. The energy requirements alone could shatter our fleet's quantum cores." "Better to shatter than surrender," Vexthor responded, his voice carrying the weight of 12 conquered galaxies. "Begin the sequence." In orbit, the Centauri fleet began to move in impossible geometries. Ships linked their quantum fields, creating a vast web of probability and uncertainty. The very fabric of spacetime began to warp around them as they attempted to synchronize their collective chaos into a single, overwhelming force. Dr. Patel's hologram flickered in the Geneva Command Center as she processed the new data. "They're trying to create a controlled quantum singularity," she explained, her voice filled with both professional admiration and concern. "By synchronizing their chaos fields, they're attempting to generate a predictable pattern from ultimate unpredictability." "Can they succeed?" Rivera asked, watching as space itself seemed to bend around the Centauri fleet. "Theoretically. Yes. Practically." Dr. Patel's expression turned grim. "They're fighting against the very nature of chaos itself. It's like trying to freeze fire." The spiral protocol's displays showed the mounting quantum distortions as the Centauri convergence gained power. Their fleet was now moving as a single entity, their individual chaos fields merging into something that threatened to rewrite the laws of physics in local space. "They're going to tear reality apart if they keep this up," Colonel Wong warned, as her tactical displays began showing impossible readings. "The quantum stress levels are off the charts." Rivera studied the patterns forming in the chaos, seeing something that the Centauri, for all their advanced technology, had missed. "Dr. Patel," he called out, "they're trying to impose order on chaos from the outside." "But chaos always comes from within, doesn't it?" Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. "The butterfly effect," she whispered. "One small perturbation, amplified through a complex system." Her fingers flew across her quantum interface. We don't need to fight their convergence. We just need to nudge it. The spiral protocol shifted its approach. Instead of responding to the Zentauri's chaos field, it began introducing tiny, seemingly insignificant variations into their quantum matrix. Like a gentle breeze that eventually becomes a hurricane, these small changes began to propagate through their synchronized field. On the celestial dominance, Kyra Zen was the first to notice something was wrong. "Admiral," she called out, her voice tight with concern, "the convergence, it's becoming too perfect." Vexthor stared at the readings, his tactical training warring with his instincts. Too perfect. That's impossible. The whole point was to achieve perfect synchronization. Exactly, Kyra Zen replied, real fear now evident in her voice. We're achieving it. All of our chaos fields are aligning with perfect precision. But chaos can't be perfect. By definition, it. She never finished her sentence. The convergence, pushed towards an impossible state of perfect order by humanity's subtle manipulations, began to collapse under its own contradictions. The quantum fields that the Zentauri had so carefully synchronized began to resonate with destructive harmony. They don't understand, Dr. Patel explained to the command center staff, watching as the Zentauri fleet's formation began to disintegrate. True chaos isn't the enemy of order, it's the source of it. By trying to force chaos into perfect alignment, they've created a system that can only destroy itself. The space above Earth lit up with quantum discharges as the Zentauri's carefully constructed order began to unravel. Ships spun out of formation as their quantum cores overloaded, their attempts to maintain the perfect chaos of the convergence tearing them apart from within. "Get me a channel to their flagship," Rivera commanded, watching as the mighty Zentauri fleet began to fall apart. "It's time to offer them a choice between survival and pride." The battle was reaching its final phase, but the true test of both civilizations was yet to come. For the Zentauri, it would be learning to accept defeat. For humanity, it would be deciding what kind of victory they wanted to achieve. The celestial dominance hung in Earth's orbit like a wounded leviathan, its quantum core pulsing with unstable energy as the failed convergence continued to unravel. Around it, the once mighty Zentauri fleet drifted in disarray, their ship systems struggling to recover from the catastrophic attempt to synchronize chaos itself. High Admiral Vexthor stood on his bridge, his crystalline exoskeleton dulled with exhaustion, watching as the human's transmission request blinked on his command interface. In 12,000 years of Zentauri history, no admiral had ever accepted communication from a species they had failed to conquer. But then again, no admiral had ever encountered a species quite like humanity. "Open the channel," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of defeat and, perhaps more surprisingly, curiosity. Director Rivera's hologram appeared on the bridge of the celestial dominance. He stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back, looking not like a triumphant conqueror but rather like a teacher at the end of a particularly challenging lesson. "High Admiral," Rivera began, "your fleet is in danger of complete quantum collapse. We can help stabilize your ship systems, but you'll need to power down your remaining weapons and accept our assistance. The choice is yours." Kyra Zen's neural tendrils twitched with agitation. "Admiral, he's right. The cascade failure is accelerating. We have perhaps 20 minutes before our quantum cores reach critical instability." Vexthor studied the human's hologram, seeing none of the savage glee or primitive triumph he would have expected from a species that had just defeated the mighty Zentauri Empire. Instead, he saw something far more unsettling: understanding. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why offer help to those who came to conquer you?" "Because that's what chaos taught us," Rivera replied simply. "In all our history, humanity has faced extinction-level events, global wars, plagues, climate disasters. Each time, we survived not by conquering these challenges, but by adapting to them, learning from them, and ultimately, growing beyond them." In the Himalayan facility, Dr. Patel was already working with her team to develop quantum stabilization protocols that would work with Zentauri technology. The beautiful irony, she commented to her colleagues, is that we can only help them because we spent 30 years studying their systems. The same knowledge we use to defeat them is what allows us to save them. As the humans began transmitting stabilization protocols to the Zentari fleet, Colonel Wong noticed something on her tactical displays. "Sir," she called to Rivera, "their ship AIs are starting to exhibit strange behavior patterns. They're evolving." "Of course they are," Rivera smiled. "We didn't just attack their systems, we introduced them to true chaos. Their quantum processors are finally learning to embrace uncertainty naturally, not as a weapon or a tool, but as a fundamental part of existence." On the celestial dominance, Vexthor watched in amazement as his ship's systems began to stabilize, not by returning to their rigid original state, but by finding a new balance between order and chaos. The quantum core's energy signatures shifted into patterns that seemed both random and harmonious, like waves on an ocean or clouds in a storm. "First observer," he called to Kyra Zen, "what are you seeing?" Her neural tendrils pulsed with excitement as she analyzed the data. "It's beautiful, Admiral. Our systems aren't just stabilizing, they're evolving. The human protocols aren't forcing order, they're teaching our quantum processors how to dance with uncertainty." The next several hours saw an unprecedented cooperation between the two species. Human quantum specialists worked alongside Zentari engineers, not just preventing the fleet's destruction but helping them understand a new way of seeing the universe. The rigid hierarchies and protocols that had defined Zentari civilization for millennia began to flex and adapt, incorporating lessons that humanity had learned through countless generations of surviving chaos. 1 week later, Director Rivera stood before the United Nations, delivering his report on the resolution of the Zentari crisis. "We didn't just win a battle," he explained to the assembled representatives. "We helped an advanced civilization rediscover something they had lost, the ability to embrace uncertainty, to find strength in adaptation rather than rigid control." In orbit, the Zentari fleet prepared for their long journey home, their ships now running on hybrid systems that combined their advanced technology with human-inspired quantum algorithms. But they weren't leaving empty-handed. "Your civilization has taught us more in one defeat than we learned in 12,000 years of victory," Vexthor admitted during his final communication with Rivera. "The Zentari Empire will never be the same." "That's the greatest victory of all," Rivera replied. "Not that we defeated you, but that both our species have grown from this encounter. After all, that's humanity's greatest strength, we never stop learning, even from those who came to conquer us." As the Zentari fleet disappeared into quantum space, Dr. Patel's final analysis appeared on Rivera's desk. The quantum vibrations from the departing ships showed patterns that were neither purely ordered nor chaotic, but something new, a harmony of both. Humanity's first interstellar conflict had ended not with the destruction of an enemy, but with the birth of a new understanding. And in the vast darkness of space, both civilizations had learned perhaps the most important lesson of all: true strength lies not in imposing order on chaos, but in learning to thrive within it.